Welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, India's only daily television platform for small businesses. We bring you the right information to empower you, the SME entrepreneur. Tonight on the show, we're talking about the fact that India has for the first time ever broken into the top 100 when it comes to the ease of doing business globally. But the government says it's not satisfied and is looking at breaking into the top 50 club, and that too in a short time frame. What changes do small businesses expect to see on the ground? What should the government be doing to ensure that effectiveness and implementation happen? I posed all of those questions and more to two special panelists tonight. First up, let me introduce Dr Brinda Jagirdar. She's an independent director and senior economist. We also have on the panel tonight Harshad, Lahoti, co-founder, Our Ventures. Dr. Jagirdar, Harshad, thank you very much for your time here on the Leaders of Tomorrow, talking in the backdrop of the ease of doing business announcements we've seen on the part of the government and the fact that we are counting down to the elections next year. So this panel is going to break down just some of the factors that small businesses are working with in this present economic environment. My first question, of course, is to very briefly ask you, Harshad, if you can sure. Talk about both your venture as well as the fact that you are an investor who invests into other businesses. Let's start there and then we'll talk about the headlines on ease of doing business.
Sure. I represent a company which invests in startups. So it's an angel network, and we invest in early stage startups, give them financing of 1 to 3 crores in initial stages of the company. Over the last 8 years, I have invested in over 50 startups which have scaled to various levels and have been through the grind, so to speak, of figuring out whether it's easy to do business here in India and how easy it is. And quite a few of my companies have also taken the plunge to move abroad.
So then let's talk about the ease of doing business, and I want to address the headlines as far as the ease of doing business is concerned, and this is to the two of you. We've seen some very good news coming in on the headlines. India has jumped to the 77th spot. We've also seen a jump of 50 places as far as how easy it is to do business here in India. Let's address the headlines. How optimistic are you seeing these headlines? And let me come to you first, Dr. Jagirdar.
Yes, as you rightly said, Sunanda, the headlines is really good because we were 142 in 2014 and we've jumped to 77th position now. And the World Bank report itself says that we are among the top 10 when it comes to having shown notable improvement. So I think that is really very good. In particular, where have we really jumped? What has given the push is one is construction permits, where we've jumped from 181 position last year to 52 position now. And second is in the trade, the export and import, ease of doing business in the export and import trade. That we have jumped from 146 position to 80 in just 1 year. And in terms of getting electricity, we are 24. In terms of ease of credit, we are 22. And of course, where minority shareholders are concerned, we are right up on top in number 7. So I think these are some things which have really helped us, not just in the investors within domestic investors, but also foreign investors. So I think first, when you improve the environment, that is the first step in attracting investment. So I think this is a very positive step.
Okay, I will come back and talk about attracting investments as well as breaking down those headlines. But first up, as someone who's working so closely with startups, how excited are you by the fact that at least in the rankings, we've moved up?
Absolutely. I mean, there's no denying that it's a step in the positive direction, and in fact we have taken a leap, not just a step. There's no denying about that. But when it comes to facts on the ground, when it actually comes to execution, I think there is a lot left to desire. Brinda here has spoken about how the other 5 points really we have scaled in the 5 points, but the other 5 points which we are way above and ranking somewhere over 100. Especially like enforcing contracts or starting a new business. All these points are so critical when it comes to startups and MSMEs. So we are way and there's a lot left to be desired, and we need to improve a lot over there. But yes, having said that, there's no doubt that things are moving in the positive direction. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, you were saying that there are some things that still need to be fixed. Ma'am, you were talking about some of the finer details as far as the ease of doing business is concerned. I just want to go into that in depth. Some of them are looking good. some perhaps not so good. So I just want to get both of your opinions on that. We rank at 137 when it comes to the overall ease of starting a business, 52 when it comes to construction permits, and that's also been a jump. That perhaps is looking good. 121 when it comes to paying taxes, 166 in registering property, 163 in resolving contracts. Both from an on-the-ground sort of implementation standpoint, as well as the fact that, you know, you were talking about how it's also in terms of attracting investments, etc. What's the sort of message we're sending out if things like resolving contracts, etc.
Okay, let me say two things. Yes, Harshad said, and you also said, I completely agree. Work in progress, registering property, starting new business, enforcing contracts. These are some serious issues that still need to be resolved. So far as paying taxes is concerned, we are 121, yes, but I think a lot of progress has been made, and perhaps that has not yet got factored in because I think they have a cut-off date or something like that. So GST, for example, that has made such a big difference, and getting people to pay taxes and the direct tax online, you get refunds immediately without any intervention of any authority. So that has made it very simple, and the compliance has increased so much. So I think where paying taxes is concerned, we have really improved, but it has not yet got reflected where the numbers are, where the ranking is concerned. Like I said, perhaps there's a cut-off date, and that would make a difference. Now, why is it important? Now, as Harshad was saying, it is more for the large industry. Now, I think the MSMEs and the startups,
yeah, sure.
they all depend on the bigger industries too. I mean, it's an interdependent ecosystem. Now, for example, access to credit, the insolvency code has made it easier now, so that the creditor rights have been enforced, and now it is much easier. Banks may not directly want to lend to the small and startups, but they're lending to the NBFCs,
sure,
who in turn are lending to this particular sector. So I think that is one area which is which is really, that problem has, that issue has been addressed over there. And only when you make it easier for the large companies, like for example, Reserve Bank has said now the large companies will have to compulsorily trade on their platform called Threads, so that it becomes easier for the small companies to get their payment. So I think these kind of systems, which will really, it's highlighting the interdependence, and it is then helping the small industries also to take advantage of the movement that has been made.
Sure.
It's very important to understand what is exactly being defined by the ease of doing business, which sector is being spoken of. So we are talking of companies which are 10 to 50 member size companies. So that is what ease of doing business has taken in picture. So very large companies usually will not fall in this category. So you know, most of the large companies have deep pockets, and they can manage to hire external help to be it enforcing contracts, be it paying taxes, getting the right CAs on board, getting the right auditors on board. All this is easily done by larger companies. But what happens for MSMEs, which usually fall in the definition of 10 to 50 member team sizes?
Sure.
Now, if we speak about them, usually especially startup usually starts by being one member team. That's how you start. And if you look at that definition, then something like enforcing contracts is such a big pain even in India today. Enforcing contracts essentially means you need to probably approach arbitration or a court of law. And in India, the situation is so bad when it comes to getting justice in the court of law. It takes years. In USA, you have 10 times more judges as compared to India. And the population of USA is 3 times less than India, which essentially means there are 30 times more judges per person in US. So if enforcing in contract in US takes 6 months, in India it will take 15 years. That's what the situation of when it comes to enforcing contracts in India is. You know, it's very bad. So unless we don't improve on the this point particularly, and we are in probably mid hundreds or around 130 when it comes to enforcing contracts. So unless that doesn't come drastically down, I don't think people from abroad are going to look at coming into India and setting up shop here.
Sure, 163 in fact when it comes to resolving contracts. Now, the big picture, of course, is that India, and this has been announced by the Prime Minister not too long back, saying that we want to move into the top 50 when it comes to the ease of doing business. What's it going to take?
You know, it is based not on government, this ranking is based not on government
Absolutely.
data, but it's based on surveys from, say, the users, like, say, brokers,
But the implementation
lawyers,
being done
accountants.
by the government.
Yeah.
Sure.
So therefore, you know, how they feel, whether it has been. So then, you know, it's actually a small subset. It's really not such a large sample. It's not a countrywide or larger picture. So I think that with that limitation, I completely agree. Enforcing contracts has been really a big something which is really holding us back, and that needs to be done. Where registration of property is concerned, yes, that is also a challenge, but they're making a beginning. For example, digitization of land records, that's a first step. And that is slowly happening, but I think, yes, it's very slowly happening. It should be ramped. If we need to move into the top 50, then these are the areas we need to focus on. And that is what will give us the big jump. Enforcing contracts, starting new business, registering property. This is still a big nightmare, I would say, not only for small. For small, of course, it is, and for startups even more, but even for the large industry, changing a name, getting registration, you know, getting your finances. So I think those are hassles which now need to be sorted out. The easy bit we have already done. The low hanging fruit we have taken care of. The real hard work begins now.
Okay, so in terms of implementation, what I'm trying to understand is, as far as implementing some of these changes, etc., announcements that have been made, what are one or two of the first things that have to be done critically and urgently if we are to move ahead in the ease of doing business?
Sure. So starting a new business, let's start with that. That's the most critical, right? That comes right on the top. Now, starting a new business, we stand 137. If we improve by, say, 50 points there, or 80 points there, we will suddenly fall under 50 on an overall ranking.
Sure.
So what is that? What is it that is required to be done to help starting a new business? At the moment, it takes in India, as per the data, it takes around 17 days to start a business. Whereas, say, the number one in the world of ease of doing business is probably Singapore or New Zealand.
It takes a couple of hours.
It takes few hours.
Yes.
Versus 17 days. And 17 days, mind you, is a misnomer. It's not actually on ground. On ground, it takes 6 months.
Sure.
So we need both the government and the private sector to come together to help in building structures and processes and simplifying compliance and processes, so as to help us take that leap from 77 to under 50.
Okay, we're going to take a very quick break on that note on this panel discussion, talking about ease of doing business and how to ensure it becomes more effective as far as implementation is concerned. But we have to take a very short break. Much more when we come back. Just stay tuned. Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight on the show we're talking about ease of doing business and what its impact is for you, the SME entrepreneur. I want to take a slightly divergent view, and Dr. Jagirdar, maybe you can comment on this. Entrepreneurs, and as someone who invests into businesses, he's saying that it takes very long to set up businesses. Whereas we've spoken extensively with the government, we've interviewed the MSME minister, we speak with stakeholders from the government who say all the information that you need is, say, for instance, on the MSME website. They've set up, dispute resolution cells. They've set up GST cells to help small businesses understand filing of GST easier. Where's that mismatch happening? Why is that mismatch in information happening?
You know, let me just take up from where Harshad left off. And one other point is access to credit, because that is where the MSMEs have a biggest problem. Now, the government has announced that under 59 minutes, that is within 1 hour, we will make sure that your sanction is done, because you have your Aadhaar, your PAN, all the details are there, so it's very easy. And there are companies which sanction loans in under 10 minutes. So it's really, this 1 hour is really not such an impossible task. But the point is, the hard work begins from here, because the sanction will take a long time, this disbursement will take a long time. The manager is still responsible for checking all your documents, for making sure the collateral is in place, and then ultimately the disbursement will be done. So I think that's where there would be some need for some more intervention, and to make sure that the money is also disbursed in time. Yes, but this is a very good step actually that we've started, saying that we will sanction the money, we'll sanction your credit very quickly.
Sure.
So it's not held up there.
Sure.
Yeah. Specific to answer your points on GST that you mentioned. So two major reforms or steps taken by the government currently were GST and demonetization. So as far as demon is concerned, both are great steps in the right direction, but as far as demon is concerned, it really has not affected my startups or segment as much. Sure. There's no doubt it's a step in the right direction because we work everything in check,
in the digital
not in the digital space,
sure.
and nothing is in cash.
Sure.
But their customers have got affected. So there's a problem, but I think it's a small, it's a temporary problem, and it's a blip which will, I think, normalize over time. But GST, while it's a great step and we had to move in that direction, the compliances around GST that one has to adhere to, especially startups, MSMEs, are so huge. And it's not like previously service tax regime, we had compliances every 6 months. Now we have to do it monthly.
Sure.
So I now need to hire another CA or pay him twice as much money to actually get that done. And as a startup, I really cannot afford to spend that extra money when my focus needs to be to grow and run my business.
Okay, you were talking about funding, and I just want to come back to that. Ease of doing business also, and this is one of the most, or rather the most important thing for any business in the country, and that's funding. Of the 21 or so nationalized banks in the country, reports are suggesting that 11 of those have pretty much stopped lending because of the NPA situation that we're looking at. And the businesses that are going to be impacted the most out of the NPA situation in the country are your small businesses. What perhaps is the way out of this?
If you look at the data which is put out by RBI, which shows sectoral deployment of credit, already there was a slowdown, and banks were, because as you rightly said, the NPA situation, banks were becoming risk averse, and small businesses are high risk. So what they preferred to do, the wholesale lending was anyway declining, but the retail lending was going up, and indirect lending to NBFCs. So banks were lending to NBFCs, NBFCs in turn were lending to the small sector. So in that sense, it was channeled probably to someone who knew better how to handle the risk and take on and make sure that credit is available. So even though banks were not directly lending, it's not as if lending to SME sector had come to a halt.
Okay, sure.
Right. So as far as the startups that I represent, and essentially the startup community, we usually don't go for debt. In the initial time, we want is equity capital and not debt capital. So as far as equity capital is concerned, because we need to deploy, after we have proved the proof of concept or the concept in general, we need to deploy capital to burn and to grow the company and its proof of concept to something that is sustainable. So debt is out of the picture, at least in the initial time. Equity capital that you raise from angel networks and startups are now facing a big problem of angel tax that you are aware of. And it's unfortunate, but the government has not done anything.
How should that be fixed?
To resolve the biggest problem. Like 5 out of my portfolio companies, 50 companies, are currently dabbling with the issue of going to income tax authorities and resolving, because they've got notices. And they've left their business aside and they are trying to resolve the angel tax issue. So they've got notices as to how did you raise money, at why did you raise it at that valuation. Everything that is not raised beyond a particular valuation is going to be taxed, and they have to submit compliances and proofs, and that is not helping at the moment. So the only way that can be done is to get the proper regulation around angel networks, which is currently missing in India. Across the world, there are proper regulations as to who can be an angel, how to run an angel network. The angel funds have currently got some advantage over angel networks. That's something that is not helping the angel networks today. And angel networks are a critical piece of the puzzle when it comes to funding startups, because venture capitalists will not touch a company at such early stage. And funds will not touch. Only an angel comes into the picture when nobody is there to actually support the company. So you have to give tax breaks, and you have to, not just to the angel investors, but also need to understand the plight of a startup when it comes to this angel tax.
So then, picking up on what you're saying, Harshad, we are of course counting down to the vote on account next year. And this is to the both of you. What would you like to see? What do you think again is critical that the government announces for industries, particularly small businesses?
Unless make it easy for angel investors to come in, because that is at the grassroots level. So I think the budget should really relook at its angel tax and make it very easy for angel investors to step in, because that's the first step, and the venture capitalists will come in only after the angel investors have really made some position on the ground. I
represent the startup community, right? So obviously I want the perks for the startup community. First of all is reduction of compliances. Especially for startup, I don't mind any of the compliances when I reach a particular stage of my life in my company. But when I'm initially starting up, I need all the support that both the private sector and the government can lend to help me grow.
Sure.
So which essentially is around compliance and funding, right? So compliance is from the government side and funding from the private sector or the angels. So regulations around angel networks, I think this is something that has been missing, as I have already reiterated earlier. If we can get proper regulations around how the angel network should function, what is it that they can do, cannot do, we are okay to abide by them. It's just that everything is in grey. And for some reason, I don't know, the governments throughout have loved to be in the grey. And I really want them to get into black and white. And if they can pen things down and expect everybody to comply, I think it will be a level playing field. And we will be able to compete neck to neck with countries all over the world.
Sure.
And not just be stuck in the realm of things.
What I would say is, yes, relaxation where tax is concerned is very good, but relaxation where compliance is concerned, I'm not too sure. Because we should make it easy for them to comply, not make it difficult for them to comply and reduce the compliances.
Sure. As far as the ease of doing business ranking is concerned, we rank 80 when it comes to trading across borders. So I just want to pick up on that data point and say that India, in terms of perception when it comes to ease of doing business, in terms of perception when it comes to attracting investments and actually attracting FDI, how do you think we're doing given these figures?
Let me say, from an internal point of view, we've moved from 146 to 80. So I think that's a big jump and it's a welcome jump. And we've done this because of certain very important initiatives that we've taken, like electronic sealing of containers and using digital signature, the submitting your forms online, etc. So from our point of view, it's very good, but 80 is not good. I completely agree. We need to move up. We need much faster. So that is still work in progress. But this is a lot export-import business. It aims to give fillip to that, because if the global economy is going to grow, then we need to be up there to be able to link up with the global economy. So this is work in progress. We need to move up much faster on this area.
Sure.
Yes. So trading across borders, I mean, it sounds all right, but the problem is on the ground again.
Okay.
I have faced problems in remitting money abroad when it comes to making investments. I've faced a problem whenever I've received money from abroad. The amount of compliances that I've had to adhere to was not the most pleasant experience. So so did my startups. I mean, most of my startups, because if they want to really target customer base outside India, they prefer to set up shop in another country, specifically Singapore, because again it's number 1, 2 on the list, and they really help in making life conducive for a startup. So that is still happening. So unless we don't really significantly improve on that 80 ranking to say under 50, and everybody steps in, which includes the RBI, which includes the government, compliances again of trading across borders, I'm not going to be very hopeful on that point until then. Okay. But as I said, step in the right direction, but a lot to be desired yet.
All right. Thank you both very much for being with us here to discuss some of the things small businesses would like to see, particularly when it comes to ease of doing business.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Sunanda.
Thank
you
so
for
much.
having us.
That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, we love hearing from you. Do get in touch. leadersoftomorrow@timesgroup.com is our email ID. Also get in touch with us on social media. Tweeted me personally at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET now, which is our official Twitter handle. On Facebook, reach us at Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.